Good morning to our viewers here in Ghana and online. I'm Javon Vickery with the July 14 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know. A former bank employee will spend the next 6 years behind bars after he pled guilty to the charge of attempting to rob a commercial bank and discharging a loaded firearm, among charges in connection with last week's attempted heist at Republic Bank Water Street, Georgetown location. His alleged cohorts were all remanded. Here are the details. The accused men, some of whom appeared very remorseful, arrived at the Georgetown Magistrates Court on Friday morning, escorted by ranks of the Criminal Investigations Department and welcomed by a flashing of cameras lined up on the court steps. One of the accused, Jamal Haynes, a former employee of the bank that came under attack last week, confessed before Magistrate Anne McLennan to attempting to rob the bank, among other criminal charges. Haynes was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. He admitted that on July 4 at Water Street, he had one 9mm live round along with a 9mm pistol. It was further noted that on the day in question, he unlawfully obstructed the course of justice by holding then Kudar Singh as hostage. The convicted man told the court in an explanation that he and the deceased friend Elton Ray had no intention of robbing the bank, but they had targeted an individual in the same institution. He noted that after shots were fired at the glass window, he intervened and as such held Singh as hostage while the police and the Professional Guard Service PGS guards were shooting at him. Meanwhile, these men, 24-year-old Rural Constable Kevin George, 21-year-old Police Constable Aferni Blackman, 23-year-old bank employee Sean Grimman, and 24-year-old construction worker Kieran Saunders pleaded not guilty to attempting to rob Republic Bank. Several men staged a failed attack on Republic Bank's Water Street location on July 4. Elton Ray was shot dead, and Jamal Haynes was shot in his leg. Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News. Roy and James will now tell you that no meddling by the administration in determining a sentencing policy. The government is leaving it solely to the judiciary to decide on a new sentencing policy for Ghana. Here are the details.
Persons who are on remand for minor offences such as possession of small amount of marijuana were recently released on their own recognizance from the jail after the Camp Street prison incident last Sunday. This has brought to the fore the question of the sentencing policy and the possible imposition of less punitive penalties for persons who commit minor offences. Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjitan was asked how prepared is the government to revisit the sentencing policy.
That is something that the judiciary and the magistracy has to do.
Ramjitan was at the time responding to questions from Nightly News at his Thursday morning press briefing. The minister said, however, that he has knowledge that there were moves in that regard.
I understand the former chancellor had gone a far way in doing some document in relation to a new sentencing policy document. I think that question will be far better directed to members of the judiciary.
The minister could not say whether that sentencing policy document has been completed. Opposition leader Bar Jack Diaz spoke on the issue recently.
Now, if the government felt that some people were in prison who shouldn't have been there, they should have taken these measures before we had the fire. So now they've decided to release a number of people. I don't know if the executive is giving instructions to the judiciary now. So we have to find out where the instructions to the magistrates came from.
Roy and James, HGP Nightly News.
We tell you now that Christian religious groups have issued a call for elected national leaders to work together more productively. In a statement issued on Friday, the leaders expressed their grave concern over what appears to be poor lessons in decorum by national leaders. The religious leaders expressed their concern that these behaviors are permeating into the society and contributing to both socio-political and institutional breakdowns, which are too often characterized by human rights abuses that generate the kind of violence, trauma, and mayhem experienced on July 9 at the Camp Street prison. The religious leaders further said they believe Guyana can make greater progress towards peace and development if there is a commitment from elected national leaders to work together more productively, beginning in Parliament and radiating outwards to the rest of the country. Continued challenges within the justice system, including as it relates to bail, remand delays, sentencing, draconian laws, and jail conditions, for example, indicate that the judiciary and the government must urgently redouble their efforts to implement the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry into the 2016 prison riots. Some 79,000 Guyanese were granted immigrant and non-immigrant visas by the United States Embassy in Georgetown in 2016. The announcement was made by U.S. Ambassador Perry Holloway. Royden James reports.
Ambassador Holloway made a disclosure on Thursday evening during the U.S.'s 241st Independence Day celebration at the Marriott Hotel, Georgetown.
Visas are an important part of what we do here. Our consular section processed more than 72,000 non-immigrant visas. That's tourist visas largely and business visas. Processed means actually issued 72,000 visas and 7,000 immigrant visas last year. Those are Guyanese, unfortunately, who are leaving their country to join their family in the U.S.
Mr. Holloway noted that with the improvements in the economic situation over the last few years, the embassy's refusal rate has reduced significantly from a high of well over 50% 5 years ago.
And luckily for us, only a very small percentage of Guyanese who go to the U.S. actually abuse their visas and stay illegally. It's within the normal statistics for the rest of the country and the region.
The embassy also beefed up its security to guard against persons trying to obtain visas illegally, Mr. Holloway disclosed.
This last year, our consular section and regional security officers worked with law enforcement to ensure the first successful prosecution ever for visa fraud in Guyana, which led to the imprisonment of an internet cafe vendor. Our regional security office assisted local banks on the verification of suspected counterfeit notes, as well as assisting the Guyana police force in running traces on suspected weapons involved in local crimes.
Over the past year, Ambassador Holloway noted that over 500 Guyanese are employed by the embassy and that the embassy spent about $30 million US, equivalent to 6.5 billion Guyana dollars, in bilateral and regional foreign assistance here. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Guyana and the United States are boasting a reliable and strategic security partnership that has the potential to counter transnational crime, which is a common threat facing both countries. Kristen Macklingham reports.
The friendship and collaboration between Guyana and the United States over the past 51 years have resulted in successful bilateral cooperation in the areas of education, culture, defense, security, health, and much more. And with regards to security, the threat of transnational crime can only be countered through international cooperation, says President David Granger.
International terrorism and trafficking in persons and in illegal weapons and narcotics represent national security threats to our states and to the hemisphere. They weaken the security of small states. They undermine public institutions and erode illicit economies. International security cooperation is critical to combating these threats. Cooperation is imperative for human safety. Cooperation is vital to preserving the Caribbean as a zone of peace. Cooperation is necessary to maintaining the integrity of the criminal justice systems and to dismantling criminal networks.
President David Granger addressing a reception to mark the 241st Independence Anniversary of the U.S. at the Marriott Hotel Georgetown on Thursday. President Granger noted that Guyana and the U.S. have already begun collaboration at the regional level through the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, CBSI.
We look forward to deepening this collaboration under the Caribbean 2020 multi-year strategy to increase security, prosperity, and well-being of the people of the United States and the Caribbean. This strategy will be instrumental in strengthening the economies and sustaining the security of Caribbean states.
Meanwhile, in reference to Guyana's Green State agenda, the president added that the U.S. can teach Guyana much.
The USA, a global leader in renewable energy technologies, is committed to helping the countries of the Caribbean to reduce its high energy costs. Guyana looks forward to learning from the USA in this field.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingam.
Thank you, Kristen. A Canada-based not-for-profit organization called the Justice Education Society, JES, has entered the local arena to help provide widespread legal education to build stronger communities. Ayana George reports.
The ultimate goal of the Justice Education Society, JES, is to promote knowledge of the justice system. The Guyana Police Force and the judiciary are the first to derive benefit from the work of this organization. Project manager of JES, Evelyn Neiman, explains the organization's purpose.
Before we came here, the crime scene technicians were not processing scenes to collect the forensic evidence using best international practices. And I can say that we, by coincidence, drove by the murder of the mini bus driver on Tuesday it was, and we saw, and it was just a total coincidence. We stopped, the area was cordoned off properly, they were wearing, their health and safety concerns were in place, they were doing an excellent job picking up evidence, they had investigators there interviewing witnesses, and we know that this wasn't always the case before.
JES project manager Evelyn Neiman. She added that the organization applies various quality control mechanisms to ensure improved professionalism by members of the Guyana Police Force. Mrs. Neiman was asked about the Justice Education Society's collaboration with the judiciary in Guyana.
Forensic evidence has not been used much in Guyana, and so the magistrates really lack the ability to assess forensic evidence. So a lot of the training was about helping them assess forensic evidence. It was now coming through the system, through the crime scene technicians who were collecting it. Mm-hmm. And so we did a lot of training on how do you assess forensic evidence, how do you assess forensic video evidence. We involved them in seminars with investigators and the actual unit of the forensic team in the Guyana Police Force so they could learn from each other how it's being done.
Through assessments, she disclosed that some young magistrates in Guyana still face challenges with the law and legal concepts. With this, I asked Mrs. Neiman how her organization views the backlog of cases in the magistrates' courts.
The Chancellor did want us to address the backlog in the magistrates' court. And we had the Chief Judge of British Columbia, Canada, come and do a diagnostic to look at the challenges because all court systems have backlog. This is not new to Guyana, and there's always ways around it. And we actually brought a delegation from Guyana, including the Chancellor and the Chief Magistrate and the head of the DPP, and a High Court judge to Canada, and we showed them all the kind of ways that backlog can be handled.
She emphasized that various alternatives are implemented by the Guyana justice system, including collaborating with the Mental Health Unit and the Ministry of Social Protection to speedily deal with trials. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, Ayana George.
We tell you now that Director of Prisons Gladwin Samuels has revealed that there have been violent incidents occurring since prisoners were transferred to Lusignan Prison. Here are the details. There has been a concerted effort by the joint services to transfer and release prisoners to reduce the prison population at the Lusignan Holding Center. But according to Director of Prisons Gladwin Samuels, fights and other violent incidents in the compound of the Lusignan prison have been keeping security personnel busy. Medical attention, if needed, is provided on the ground.
We've had a number of fights not resulting in any serious injuries. All of the incidents we've had so far and that required medical attention was given on site. As I said, we had some fights. We had one prisoner who received some small cuts, which was as a result of a confrontation with another prisoner.
There have also been attempts by prisoners to escape from the holding facility, according to Director of Prisons. These occurrences have been addressed by using standard operational procedures, he said.
Most major incident we had there is one prisoner who was shot to his left hand after he was observed on top of the fence, which caused the guards to believe that he was attempting to escape. And based on our SOPs, it was at the appropriate time to engage.
Meanwhile, Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramchatan noted that magistrates are expected to grant minimal pretrial liberty and, in some cases, self-bail in order to help reduce the prison population at Lusignan.
As you would see in the Commission of Inquiry report, the presumption of innocence and all of that is something that they should be taking into consideration. And releasing the persons because there is the presumption of innocence. And especially for those lesser offenses, they ought to be granting the bail that is going to be so reasonable enough that they could afford to pay.
He further asserted that no bail will be granted for major crimes. Inmates incarcerated for major crimes will be transferred to other prisons, according to Mr. Ramchatan. Significant cooperation has been noted in a number of sectors between Argentina and Ghana, but more is in store in the fields of defense, health, and sports. Kristen Macklingham reports.
Guyana's naval capability is expected to be boosted with the training and experience provided by the Argentines. And this is just the beginning, says Argentine Ambassador to Guyana, Luis Martino.
Graduate of the Colonel Ulrich Pilgrim Officer Cadet School, Midshipman Warren Mars, has joined nearly 100 Argentine future graduates of the Naval Academy in a 3-month-long voyage across the Atlantic Ocean on board Argentina's naval school ship, the Tall Ship Fragata Libertad. This mission is meant for the young officers to share experiences, different cultures in the ports the vessel anchors, and more importantly, acquiring learning skills in the high seas.
Ambassador Martino noted that in the area of health, focus is presently being placed on hematology, so as to ensure that Guyana's blood bank and blood services are boosted tremendously.
A team of Argentine experts in the field of hematology visited Guyana on 2 occasions, October and November, on an assessment and capacity building mission, which included a diagnosis in blood services and the drafting of future courses of action for the improvement of blood safety in Guyana. Phase 4 now will take place the last week in September of 2017 with a new visit of our experts for an assessment of results in the capacity building and the drafting of a roadmap into the future in the area of blood services in the country.
Meanwhile, Argentina will also be sending an elite rugby coach to help the local players.
We are also engaged in bilateral discussions in the area of sports to bring to Guyana an elite rugby technical director from Argentina to raise the level and preparedness of Guyana's rugby in all categories, including intensive training of the rugby 15s and 7s national teams as well as the women's national team.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingham.
I'm Calvin Chapman with HGP Sportscast. Good evening. Left-arm spinner Kevin Omro grabbed the 5 wickets as Guyana defeated the Leeward Islands by 1 run in the Duckworth-Lewis Stern method when the regional under-17 fifth over tournament continued yesterday. Guyana were steering down the barrel with Leeward Islands needed 14 runs from 3 overs with 6 wickets in hand, but Omro maintained a steady line to finish with 5 for 26 from 5 overs. Becoming the second player in the tournament, joining fellow Guyanese Kelvin Anderson as the only bowlers with 5 wicket hauls. When the rain came and sent the players off the field with a score on 68 for 1 in 19.3 overs, Singh on 35 and Sinclair on 19. The interruption lasted for over 5 hours, and when play resumed, the game was reduced to 21 overs per side. Guyana finished on 72 for 1 with Singh on 37 and Sinclair on 21. Using a Duckworth-Lewis Stern method, Leeward Islands were set a revised target of 140 runs. In basketball, when play continued on Thursday night, night 4 of the Georgetown Amateur Basketball Tournament, first, second, and under-23 tourney, Eagles went 2-2 wins in the second division tournament. In their first, they humiliated Sonics 101-22, and on Thursday night, Eagles flew past University of Guyana Trojans since the first quarter of the game, which finished 25-12, and never give up the lead as the match finished 85-74. As in the Eagles' previous game, Travis Belgrave was the main man with a game-high 22 points. Belgrave, who plays for the national junior and senior basketball teams, was supported ably by Kevin Wiggins, 13 points. Kwesi Thompson, 11 points, while Devon Murray chipped in with a valuable 10 points. UG Trojans were outplayed throughout, but Kadeem Peterkin, 14 points, and Shaquille Adonis tried to put some respite in the margin of defeat. Denzel Ross and Jonathan Brown both scored 9 points each for the Trojans in a losing effort. Eagles have played 3 games in the tournament so far, winning all, 2 of the second division and 1 in the under-23. Kwesi Thompson, who plays for Eagles in both the under-23 and second division category, and notched up 10 points in the match, expressed that his side has more depth and that they will be gunning for both the under-23 and second division titles.
This season we have more players, much more confident because everyone knows their role, and now that'll bring a lot of togetherness because now everybody can embrace their own role. And this year we're looking to take away the second division and the under-23 title.
The second match, which was scheduled to begin at 8:30 p.m., got underway at 10 p.m. due to the late start of the Eagles versus Trojans match. That second match was a first division encounter between Plaisance Guardians and Nets. Nets overcame the favored Guardians 59-63, despite trailing throughout the first 3 quarters. The first quarter of that game was a poor display of basketball, with only 14 points being scored in the 10-minute period. It finished 9-5. The second quarter was more eventful, with the Guardians extending their lead to 14 points as the period ended 31-17. When the third quarter finished 45-34, still in favor of Plaisance, the supporters at the Burnham court were expecting the game to finish in favor of the leaders, as was the case in the previous game of the evening. But an extra push to the end allowed the Nets, who were hungrier for the win, to come out victorious. National senior player Nikolai Smith's 21 points wasn't enough to prevent his team, Guardians, being upset by the Nets, as the star player Antoine Austin eclipsed him with a game-high 22 points. Matches continue on Saturday with 3 matches at the same venue, Burnham Court, from 5:30 p.m., and on Sunday evening with 3 more matches from 5:30 p.m. More basketball news. Guyana will be participating in the Under-17 Central American Caribbean Basketball Championships Central Basket, which is scheduled to take place in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, from July 26 to July 30 of 2017. The selection of the Guyana Under-17 basketball team has been finalized to play in the championships. The trials concluded on July 8, 2017, with 12 players being selected from the squad by head coach Lugard Mohan and assistant coaches. Returning to Guyana to play in the Central Basket Championship is United States-based Guyanese Kevon Wiggins, who was the leading scorer for Guyana in the Caribbean Basketball Confederation Under-16 2016. Other countries participating in the Central Basket Under-17 Championships are Jamaica, Bahamas, Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Guyana is in Group A alongside Mexico, Bahamas, and Puerto Rico. The team will be encamped from July 14 to 24 and will train twice daily at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall from Saturday, July 15. A press release from the GABF said it expects that the high level of the competition will expose its youths to the intense training required to succeed at the international level. In addition, the exposure will also impart self-confidence, patriotism, and discipline among our youths. The team will depart Guyana on July 25th and return on August 1, 2017. The Guyana delegation will consist of the following players. The coaching staff will be led by Lugard Mohan, head coach Kenneth Avent, assistant coach Andrew Hercules, assistant coach manager, and Jonas Anestal, physical trainer. Motor racing news. Andrew King and Bryce Prince are expected to headline Team Guyana for the second round of the Caribbean Motor Racing 2017 in Trinidad and Tobago at Month End. According to a report from the Guyana Motor Racing and Sports Club, King will represent Guyana in the Group 4 class, while Prince will lead the Super Stock team at the championship in 2 weeks' time. Danny Passad also rejoins the team for competition in Groups 3 and 4 after missing the Jamaica leg, while Ramiz Mohammed will be competing in both Groups 2 and 3 with 2 separate vehicles. In the two-wheel end of things, Kevin Prasad joins John Bennett to take the team total to 6. According to Mohammed, who is also the president of the GMRSC, the team is not a large one but has the strength to bring home valuable points in the Caribbean Championship. Vehicles are expected to be loaded tomorrow for shipping the following day. And with that, we conclude the HGP Sportscast. It's now back to you, Javon.
Thank you, Calvin. Bank robber pleads guilty, sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. 4 alleged cohorts remanded. 79,000 U.S. visas granted in 2016. Improved economic conditions in Ghana opened the door for greater immigrant and non-immigrant travel. And Christian religious leaders bemoaned the lack of decorum among elected national leaders. Those were our major headlines for these and other stories. You can go to our website, that is www.hgptv.com. I'm Javon Vickery saying thanks for joining us, and join Travis Chase on Monday. Goodbye.